Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Good morning. Time is 6:58 a.m. As you can see, the steam coming off my coffee cup here. Maybe you can't see it. This is my second cup of coffee. I just felt like having 2 cups this morning before we get started. Hope everybody slept well. Whenever you are getting this, I hope you are feeling good and all that great stuff. We're just gonna get right into it this morning, y'all. Not even cutting around the bush or anything like that. I want to start immediately. This part of the story is pretty interesting. Well, before we do that, though, you know I gotta pour it up, some lubrication. No diddy. Like I said yesterday, that joke will be old in about a year. Yeah, but anyways, gotta pour up some water. I got my coffee, second cup, and we're about to get right into it. I got my incense going over there. It's early, a little bit before 7, but we're gonna get into it. Y'all sit back, relax. Let me get a sip of coffee, enjoy the show. Oh boy, let's get right into it. Now that Sonya was older, she paid close attention to her nails, hair, skin, and all sorts of prissy things, as Jacob had put it. But according to Keyshawn, it was all of those things and more that made her so interesting. In reality, had it not been for a few unwanted blemishes, her face would have been flawless. But like many teenage girls experiencing puberty, she couldn't see past those few imperfections. A false portrayal of high esteem, a false portrayal of high self-esteem was how she got through the depressing times and all else that came with being a young woman. Having high cheekbones and eyes that were somewhat slanted, she had the face of a Nubian princess, and with long, stringy legs that always seemed to rise higher than intended with every step. Somehow the girl still managed to pull off a decent runway strut when walking. It had all began after turning 13. That's when she started acting like a girl, is how her little brother had seen it. That's when she started acting like a girl, is what Jacob said. That doesn't sound something doesn't sound right in that is how her little brother had seen it, even though it's still redundant, because even though I changed the words, it's still redundant, because like I showed you guys yesterday, I wrote right here in this section is as Jacob had put it. Okay, as Jacob had put it, and is how her little brother had seen it. Even though the words are different, it's still redundant. So it all began after 13. That's when she started acting like a girl, is what Jacob said. Yeah. Let me see. Is what Jacob had said. Is what Jacob had said. Maybe I may have to stay with that. That's when she started acting like a girl, is what Jacob had said. All right. As Jacob had put it. Let me try this. Those were in the words of Jacob or her little brother? Of her little brother. That's when she started acting like a girl. Those were the words. Alright. That's when she started acting like a girl. Were the words of Jacob, were the words of her little brother. Okay, let's try that. Were the words of her little brother. On occasion, however, the two would still wrestle and sometimes play hand games like Miss Mary Mack and Shane. Unfortunately, those games came too far in between or end abruptly after so many complaints of Jacob hitting her hands too rough during Shane. The more parts, or that it was just too childish to be playing around with little kids like Jake. Their last wrestling match had also ended suddenly after Sonia realized that it would be an opportune moment to get back at Jake for listening in on her phone conversations, a chokehold that Jacob himself had shown her, the Charleston choke. Ended up being the very cause. Y'all know what I'm doing. Not only am I editing, but I'm also listening for sounds. I'm listening. I'm hearing something. Sounds like it's coming from the garage. It might be my wife leaving. I don't know. But yeah. A chokehold that Jacob himself had shown her, the Charleston choke, ended up being the very cause of him frantically tapping out seconds before passing out. Luckily, the boy was quickly resuscitated by a tall glass of Kool-Aid that had been poured partially on his face by his nervous sister. It had been a last result after several panicked slaps by the terrified teen. Awakening to the taste of the sweet substance, cherry flavor, and seeing the dark red liquid, Jacob immediately began to wonder why his sister was teary-eyed and why he'd been covered in tasty blood. Maybe it's a dream, a nightmare, or maybe I'm dead. She must have killed me or on accident. Now I'm a ghost, about to leave my body forever. It had all taken place minutes before their parents arrived home from work, and thankfully so, both Mr. and Mrs. Wallace tended to be equally cranky. From work, and thankfully so. Both Mr. and Mrs. Wallace tended to be equally cranky after a long day's work. The last thing they would want to see was, as they entered their home, the last thing they would want to see should I put a comma? As they entered their home was their 10-year-old son sprawled out on the floor covered in blood, with their teenage daughter nervously looking over him with tears coming down her face. After bringing Jacob back to his senses, the two rushed to get him and the carpet clean, removing most of the red stain by scrubbing the carpet like maniacs. They finished off the crime scene by rearranging all the furniture in the living room, placing the couch over the wet spot. When the exhausted parents came through the door, they were surprised but proud to see that not only did their well-disciplined children take the initiative to clean and rearrange the living room, but the kitchen and the bathrooms were also spotless. Okay, so this section where Sonia chokes out her brother, this is part of my childhood, you know, being the oldest in the family. Me and my two younger brothers would play, you know, we would wrestle. We would, you know, there was a show called Black Belt Theater. It was about martial arts, Chinese martial arts, kung fu, karate, and things like that. whenever we, you know, boys, when boys are like 10, ages like, I want to say 6 all the way up to teen. It starts around maybe younger than that, but boys, we're filled with testosterone, and we want to show and prove how strong we are in maneuvers. So we would do things like that all the time and break stuff in the house. So this scene was like one of so many scenes that actually, you know, not this particular scene, but something very similar. Like we would break statues, little figurines. We would break those all the time. We would break the couch. We would hurt each other. Like me being the oldest, I was rarely the one getting hurt, but I would be hurting my little brothers, especially my youngest one. And back in the day, it was so quiet in my neighborhood. My dad always had a car with a raggedy muffler, so we would hear them coming like miles away. I can hear the car coming. And then that's when we would go into super fast, quick fix mode, fix and clean and patch up, repair, band-aid, whatever we had to do, we would fix everything right before they come in the house. Every single time. I remember one time we broke my mom's little figurine, little statue, broke the head right off one of them. And you know, the Elmer's glue? Elmer's glue is some good stuff. I don't care what nobody says. Elmer's glue, the same glue that you use on construction paper in school, that's some good stuff. Because I took that Elmer's glue and put it down on the neck, put some on the bottom of his head, stuck that thing down and cleaned it off real good. I think that statue is still in the old house because, you know, we grew up in a mobile home, and the mobile home is still in the yard. I think it's still in there somewhere with the head still on. Anyways, we're going to take it back up from the top. We're going to pick it back up from the top right here. Let me take me a sip. Y'all hold tight.
Right? These are inputs that create environments that microbes do better in. Okay, so they work because they provide better conditions for microbes to grow. You need to make sure that they don't just give you a 2-week boost in microbes, but they help microbes build over time. And as the microbial population will grow, the plants will grow, and you'll have a community that is getting stronger, both in terms of above the ground and below the ground.
All right, so I wanted to show you guys that clip. I'll play a little bit more maybe. The title of this book, and this is something that nobody's ever seen before. Maybe somebody's doing this on YouTube. More than likely somebody is, but I hadn't seen it. Me doing this is I have no frame of reference as far as writing a book, publishing a book online in real time. But Bajillion, the title, I'm giving you the title beforehand because, you know, sometimes people don't want to ruin the book by giving out the title. And I actually got to stay on the title. You know, and the title is Bajillion, and it's about microorganisms. Why is that important? Why is a book, a fictional story about microorganisms important? Well, if you don't realize it, now I'm also a gardener. I have gardening videos right now. I entered a collard green cabbage contest challenge here about maybe a few weeks ago, if you want to watch those videos. But why is gardening important? Why are microorganisms important in the soil? Well, that's not one simple answer, but I'll say this. A lot of disease, mental and like physical disease, I believe, is due to a lack of microorganisms in the soil because we use synthetic fertilizers and we till the soil and we just don't take care of the soil. When I was a little boy, and I'm not going to stay on this too long. When I was a little boy, you would in the South, you would see in summertime, you would see plums, wild blueberries, wild strawberries, wild blackberries, everywhere. I'm talking everywhere. I'm saying on a dirt road, you wouldn't have to go inside to get a snack all day long. You eat breakfast, go outside, and you would have so much. You would have an abundance of snacks. Now, when I say snacks, I'm not talking about Twix, Oreos, Reese's Pieces. I'm talking about nature fed us well when we were kids. Nowadays, if I hadn't seen a plum tree in like 20 years, like a wild plum tree growing on the side of the road in like 20 years. So I started asking myself this question, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Like, what happened to all the plums and blackberries and blueberries and chinnaberries? Do y'all know what a chinnaberry is? What happened to all these things? And that was one question that kept going over and over my head. And then I started I started wondering how are plants, growing? What's making the plant grow? What's giving a plant? And that's just a general question. I'm like, how is water making a plant grow? Water and sunlight. So those were questions that plagued me for years. So those questions kind of led me to a guy named Sadhguru. Sadhguru, he's an Indian guru. He's talking about save the soil. If you guys know him, save the soil, save the soil. Every time I see him, save the soil, save the soil. Very wise man, with the beard. He's a guru. So I started paying attention to that. Then I started paying attention to Elaine Ingham, and she's talking about the Food Network, the Soil to Food Network, I think it's called. I might be messing it up, but Elaine Ingham, I started paying attention to her. And between the two, I'm like, wow, I think this is important. I think it's very important. People don't realize. But y'all, let me get back to the story. And I'm sorry the videos are kind of cut up and everything, but if you don't watch the rest of this video, I'm getting this from Understanding the Role of Soil Microbes with Laura Decker, and it's on Riogen. If you don't watch the whole thing, very, very insightful video. The other one was sort of insightful too, but this one was really insightful. Anyways, let's get back to the story. Alright, we're going to pick it up from the top. Now that Sonia was older, she paid close attention to her nails, hair, skin, and all sorts of prissy things, as Jacob had put it. But according to Keyshawn, it was all those things and more that made her so interesting. In reality, had it not been for a few unwanted blemishes, her face would have been flawless. But like many teenage girls experiencing puberty, she couldn't see past those few imperfections. A false portrayal of high self-esteem was how she got through the depressing times and all else that came with being a young woman. Now, I see some places where I may need to just do some editing there, but we won't do it right now. I'm going to take another sip of coffee and start that over. Let me take a sip of water too. And let me say this. This is not easy, y'all. So, don't get it messed up. Now, this is not easy. This is not easy at all. But I'm doing it. And I'm getting better at it. Now that Sonia was older, she paid close attention to her nails, hair, skin, and all sorts of prissy things, as Jacob had put it. But according to Keyshawn, it was all those things and more that made her so interesting. In reality, had it not been for a few unwanted blemishes, her face would have been flawless. But like many teenage girls experiencing puberty, she couldn't see past those few imperfections, a false portrayal of high self-esteem. She couldn't see past those imperfections. Let me see. What am I doing here? I can't. Oh, capital letters here. And so, She couldn't see past those imperfections and saw a false. She couldn't see past those imperfections. Oh, excuse me.
All by myself, free from all the hustle and bustle.
And because of this, a false portrayal of high self-esteem was how she got through the depressing times. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm a little bit out of gas this morning, y'all. I gotta admit that. I'm at 21 minutes and I just started. I tried to fill it in with some video, but don't seem to be working. Don't seem to be working out. My second cup of coffee. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back. We're gonna take a break. First time taking a break, but we're gonna take a break. Come back. Okay, and we're back. We're back. I had to take a little break. Let me tell you something, y'all. Writing a book is not easy. Writing a book on YouTube while people, potentially thousands of people, it's not there yet, but the potential was there. So I just want to say this is not easy. This is not easy at all. Keep that in mind when you guys decide to click on this. You might see me, you might see me go through a mental breakdown. Not a mental breakdown. I'll pause it before that and come back. I'll have my mental breakdown off camera. And then I'll come back in. Alright, let's pick it back up. Now that Sonya was older and paid wait a minute. Now that Sonya was older, she paid close attention to her nails, hair, skin, and all sorts of prissy things, as Jacob had put it. But according to Keyshawn, it was all those things and more that made her so interesting. In reality, had it not been for a few blemishes, her face would have been flawless. But like many teenage girls experiencing puberty, she couldn't see past those few imperfections, and because of this, I gotta put a comma here, y'all. I gotta put another one here. Now somebody's gonna say, "Oh, that you shouldn't put one." I gotta do that. If it's not right, we'll fix it at that time. We'll cross that bridge when it's time to cross it. She couldn't see past those few imperfections, and because of this, a false portrayal of high self-esteem was how she got through the depressing times and all else that came with being a young woman. All right, let's say lady here. As y'all can see, I got a little more coffee in my system. Having high cheekbones and eyes that were somewhat slanted, she had the face of a Nubian princess, and with long stringy legs that always seemed to rise higher than intended with every step, somehow the girl still managed to pull off a decent runway strut when walking. Alright, we're moving now. We're cooking with gas. It all began after turning 13. That's when she started acting like a girl. It all began after turning 13. That's when she started acting like a girl, were the words of her little brother. Now see, I can come back tomorrow and read this and it sounds fine. Right now it sounds a little bit like, it sounds like I need to change it. That's when she started acting like a little girl. That's when she started acting like a girl. Were the words of her little brother. Okay, all right, let's go back up here. As Jacob had put it. That's when she started acting like a girl. about her little brother. Yeah, let's just leave it at that, man. Sometimes you just gotta leave things alone. It had all began after turning 13. That's when she started acting like a girl, is what her little brother had said. On occasion, however, the two would still wrestle and sometimes play hand games like Miss Mary Mack and Shame. Unfortunately, those games came too far in between or end abruptly after so many complaints of Jacob hitting that Jacob was hitting her hands too rough during Shame, the more parts, or that it was too childish to be playing around with little kids like Jake. Or that it was too childish to be playing around with little kids. Their last wrestling match had also ended suddenly after Sonia realized that it would be an opportune moment to get back at Jake for listening in on her phone conversations. A chokehold that Jacob himself had shown her, the Charleston choke, ended up being the very cause of him frantically tapping out seconds before passing out. Luckily, the boy was quickly resuscitated by a tall glass of Kool-Aid. Do kids drink Kool-Aid anymore? Maybe in 99 kids drunk Kool-Aid. I don't know, but we'll say fruit punch. We'll say fruit punch. We'll say fruit punch, right? That had been poured partially on his face by, why partially? That had been poured on his face. Why partially? That had been poured, because that's a word salad. You don't want too many words, man. Sometimes just get to the point. Tall glass of fruit punch that had been poured on his face by his nervous sister. It had been a last resort after several frantic slaps by the terrified teen. Awakening to the taste of the sweet substance, cherry flavored. No. I don't need it. It's fruit punch. Fruit punch is normally red, right? Awakening to the taste of the sweet substance and seeing the dark red liquid, Jacob immediately began to wonder why his sister was teary-eyed and why he'd been covered in tasty blood. Maybe it's a dream or nightmare, or maybe I'm dead. She must have killed me on accident. Now I'm a ghost about to leave my body forever. It had all taken place minutes before their parents arrived home from work, and thankfully so. Both Mr. and Mrs. Wallace tended to be equally cranky after a long day's work. The last thing they would The last thing they wanted to see as they entered their home was their 10-year-old son sprawled out on the floor covered in blood with their teenage daughter nervously looking over him with tears coming down her face. After bringing Jacob back to his senses, the two rushed to get him and the carpet clean, removing most of the red stain by scrubbing the carpet like maniacs. They finished off the crime scene by rearranging all the furniture in the living room, placing the couch over the wet spot. When the exhausted parents came through the door, they were surprised but proud to see that not only did their well-disciplined children take the initiative to clean and rearrange the living room, but the kitchen and bathrooms were also spotless. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there, y'all. This is 31 minutes. We're at 31 minutes. But please, y'all, take in consideration. I'm pleading to you. Please take into consideration these points. This book has been in the works since 1999. This story, 1999. There are kids watching this video who wasn't born in, I said, what did I say, 95? I can't remember. 99. I think I said 99. 1999. That's 25 years ago. Is when this story was started in Phoenix, Arizona. I was in my 20s in 1999. 1999, I was 22, I think. I was 22. I'll be 48 next month. So keep that in mind. This is a jewel of mine. This is my first. This is one of my kids. These are my children right here. I have 4 actual children. And I have 4 I'll stack that back up in a second. And I have, well, actually 5. These are my 4 babies. These are my 4 other babies right here. Look at those. Look at these titles here. Okay. Every now and then I gotta show people. Because they don't realize. Can y'all see this? Too much light. Saving Miss Caroline. People don't realize that this takes a lot of work. This is Mech. The first one was Jaja. Let me show you Jaja again, because this is not a flex. This is not me flossing or anything like that. But this is these are my 4 babies, and I'm gonna show you a 5th who's special. You know, he's on the spectrum, and I don't mean that in a negative way or a funny way. That's Mech. Superheroes, black superheroes, right here in this book right here. And this is my last one published, Illmatic. You know, Illmatic is my last one, and but this one here is a poetry book called Sunshine, and the title, I'm at the cover, is different now. But so I say all that to say this is my 5th child, or 6th. I don't know how you want to say it, because this is 5 books right here, so this would be 6. This is my 6th child, and what I'm doing right now, and you guys may say it's a little bit gross or whatever, but this is conception right now. You know, this is me, you know, doing the thing to create the child. Birth is when it's published, that's the birth. But these are my babies. Aside to my actual kids, these are my other kids right here. You know, pretty soon I won't be able to hold all of them in one hand, because I can't stop. I'm like Nick Cannon. I got to keep on making babies. And Elon Musk. And who else got a whole bunch of kids? Eddie Murphy. That's me when it comes to these books. I got to keep having them. Because I just got to have them. I am having some issues going through the story, the way that I'm going through the story. But believe me, this is the 6th baby right here. I don't consider Sunshine a book, but it is. I mean, it is a book. It's, you know, you compare this, you see the spine, see how thin it is. I think, how many pages is Sunshine? And I don't give Sunshine enough credit. I guess 38 pages. 138 pages. Illmanic, my last book, and this is 373 pages. 373 pages. Mech is also, this is 408 pages. 408 pages. Sunshine, and I know people say this is not about the page count. It's not. 338 pages. Save Miss Caroline, I mean. And Jaja is 347 pages. These are my babies, y'all. With all that being said, man, it's been 36 minutes. I apologize that this session was kind of, broken up a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. Salute to everybody that made it this far. This is Anthony L. Kelly. Y'all stick around. Stick around. Stick around. I'm telling you, you want to be the ones to stick around. Till next time, y'all be blessed. I'm out.